Welcome to Coming on the Call. I'm Anadea Judith, and
I'm Michael Wayne. Hi, everyone.
And this is Voices for the Future, a podcast that Michael and I have been doing for several years now, interviewing people at the front lines of doing something to create a better future, whether it's in the field of politics or economics or environment or education or healing or social movements. And today, I am so honored to be interviewing Emanuel Kuntzelman, who I first met in person at the event in Sedona, igniting the Holo movement. And I'll tell you a little bit about Emanuel, but his bio would truly take half the call, so I've shortened it a bit. Such an amazing person. Emanuel is an entrepreneur, a writer, a philosopher, a philanthropist, and activist for social transformation. He founded and managed numerous exchange organizations in Spain, the US, and the UK. He founded and created Green Heart International way back in 1985 and still serves as chief advisor to the organization. He's the co-founder of the Fundación por el Futuro, pardon my Spanish, in Madrid, Spain, and has been its president since 1995. And his work in spiritual movements includes being a founding co-creator of the Global Purpose Movement and Purpose Earth, as well as his collaboration as a member of the Evolutionary Leaders Circle, which is how I met you. And Michael is in that also, and a project of the Source of Synergy Foundation. So he just came out with a book, which was released, as we said, the first day of the conference, Igniting the Holo Movement. And I'll hold up this book here. The Holo Movement, Embracing Our Collective Purpose to Unite Humanity. And it's a series of writings by some very deep thinkers. And welcome, Emanuel. And tell us about the Holo Movement. What is the Holo Movement that we are igniting?
Well, thank you, Anadea and Michael. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate the invitation to talk about the Holo Movement. Certainly a theme that's critically important, I would say the central theme of my whole life. So happy to discuss it today. The Holo Movement is a term that was originally coined by American physicist David Bohm. He wrote a book in 1980 called Wholeness in the Implicate Order, and that is the first time he used the term and to explain it. Basically, in Bohm's idea, the Holo Movement is the single unbounded flow of the wholeness of creation, the unified field of consciousness. And he explains that what we normally see as a duality between spirit and matter is really one undivided whole. And it moves and it flows from an implicate order, which we would think of as the spiritual source, and then that manifests itself in the explicate order, which we see as physical reality. But it's all the same thing. It's one conscious flow, and it weaves back and forth between the implicate and explicate order. So that in physics terms is the Holo Movement. Bohm also used it or implied that it could be used in a sociological sense, and that's a very important component of what we're applying here. The idea being that really since the 1960s, there have been multiple movements, ideas coming forth, the New Age, the human potential movement, et cetera, et cetera. None of them have totally taken on the whole perspective of the conscious evolution in society. And it's been my feeling and many others that if we gain some kind of core identity that would unite us all, working in so many different fields and different perspectives, but really talking about the same thing, which is a transformation in society to a more spiritually conscious understanding of the nature of humanity, that this would help unite all of these different factors and bring them into one field of flow, and to better serve the transformation of society and hopefully rectify the difficulties that we are facing this day and age with so many challenges. So it's both a term in physics as proposed by Bohm. It's an application to a sociological phenomena of the coming together of the movements of movements, the hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of movements, nonprofits, worldwide, seeking to change the fundamental nature of reality and create a more peaceful, compassionate, and cooperative world for all. So we feel that it's an apt term to be used for this. It also has the scientific underpinnings with it. So it really carries this double sense of both science and spirituality. And it's really about where science and spirituality merge and how they are one and the same. So that is the essence of the term and our intention for the Holo movement.
Yeah, well, that's great. So since you've mentioned David Bohm, thought it would be helpful, Emanuel, just to give a little context about him, because his work covered physics. He was one time nominated for a Nobel Prize. His work covered consciousness. He worked with Jiddu Krishnamurti for many years, and his work also covered creativity. So this was a man who was really a Renaissance man and a role model for what the Holo movement is. So I'm wondering if you might say more about him and his inspiration for you.
Yeah, I certainly would, because in many ways, David Bohm exemplifies the Holo movement in motion himself, and his life and his struggles is also a good example to all of us that there are hurdles to get over in our path in life, and persistence and perseverance with a vision is what it really takes in the long run. So yeah, David Bohm was born in Pennsylvania, an American citizen, and majored in physics. And he worked originally at Princeton University at the same time that Albert Einstein was at Princeton at the very end of Einstein's life. And Bohm and Einstein were good friends. And Einstein sort of adopted him as his protege for a while. And then about 1952, Bohm published his theory of quantum physics. And this theory disturbed Einstein and other physicists a little bit, or maybe even quite a bit, because Bohm's theory of quantum physics required what we now call non-locality. And that is that everything in the universe is simultaneously interconnected beyond space and time. Now, of course, this was really hard for Einstein to accept. He'd already had issues with quantum physics, and this idea of non-locality, this instantaneous change, bothered him. He called it spooky action at a distance. And to explain non-locality just briefly, if one takes two particles, let's say two electrons, puts them together so that their properties and their spin are exactly the same, and then by means of a nuclear accelerator, one puts a distance, a very large distance of light years between them, and then we adjust the spin or the properties of one of the particles, the other one, no matter how far away, will instantaneously change to the same state. Now, this is so revolutionary, not only for Einstein, but for just about everyone in the world, because it really defies the speed of light. In Einstein's relativity theory, nothing can travel faster than the speed of light. So where is the mechanism? How can something be communicated from one particle to the other over a vast distance simultaneously? This was the huge question that Einstein and other physicists asked at the time that Bohm originally presented his theory. And in fact, many scientists and physicists went out to try and disprove it, and they couldn't do so. And one of his mentors, Robert Oppenheimer, said, well, we can't really disprove this, so the only thing we can do is ignore David Bohm, because the theory was so radical in the field of physics at the time. You know, it's curious, Bohm wrote a book on quantum physics about that same time, and it's still used today in many universities as a text for quantum physics. But his theory wasn't really validated and accepted until last year. In 2022, the Nobel Prize for Physics went to three different physicists who had spent most of their lives proving the theory of non-locality. And so this is kind of vindicated Bohm's life work and his theory of quantum physics. It remains to be seen how the physics community is going to accept this, because it kind of overturns the generally accepted Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics and gives us a different insight on the nature of the universe, because to some degree, Bohm thought that the universe is ontological, that it is guided and informed by an ontological pilot wave. By ontology, we mean it gives the universe meaning. There is something informing the universe. Now, this runs a little contrary to standard pure science and sort of Newtonian interpretation and evolution in a Darwinian sense that says that this is all a result of random chance. I think most of us with at least one foot in the spiritual and conscious world never believe that fully. You know, how could our minds and our consciousness be created out of something totally material? It's quite the other way around. And now this vindication of Bohm's theory, which he really says the world is based on a field of infinite quantum potential. And that is the implicate order, as he so defined it. And reality comes when this implicate order informs a process, an ontological pilot wave that moves out and forms physical reality. So that is the essence of what Bohm described. And now we are 70 years later, and he's finally getting the recognition he long deserved.
Well, what they often say about prophets is first they ignore you, then they criticize you, then they fight you, then finally they accept you.
Well, I think Bohm's been through the all four phases of that, and hopefully his acceptance will be much more widespread at this point in time.
And maybe we'll add a fifth one, then they make a movement out of you.
Well, that's what we're trying to do here, and I feel Bohm would have very much agreed with the idea of making this a movement. As Michael said, he was discussing creativity wrote a book on creativity. He also did a book on dialogue. So he was very intrigued with how humans interact. And he was aware that a growing field of human consciousness was emerging. And I think he would be honored and thrilled to see us applying the use of his term to a sociological movement on a grand scale at this point in time.
Yeah, and one other question or thing about Bohm, because you mentioned the dialogues, and I think because I was reading your book and you mentioned the Bohmian dialogues, I myself have personal experience in doing Bohmian dialogues. About 15 or so years ago, I was asked to be part of a group. There were about 20 people, and for about 2 years, we met every 2 months for Bohmian dialogues. So perhaps you could explain and also say what significance Bohmian dialogues may have with the Holo movement and igniting the Holo movement.
Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. And Bohmian dialogue consists primarily, obviously going to way oversimplify it here, but what we often term today deep listening. Really shedding our own opinions, our predetermined assumptions, emptying our mind, and truly listening to what others are saying. And that's easier said than done, because I think we will all admit that we're so full of our own ideas of reality that to empty those and be open and have a clean slate to truly absorb what someone else is saying is quite a task in and of itself. And then once that conversation emerges, continuing the dialogue with respect and understanding, seeking out points of agreement, and trying to really follow a kind of evolutionary phase of bringing the essence of truth out of a dialogue. As it rises, it converges the dialogue. And so it's quite the opposite of what we often see in conversations, debate, politics, obviously, where it's all about opposing or criticizing or trying to in some way or another, point out how the other person isn't quite right and our idea is better. This is quite the opposite of looking for the good points in what others are saying and attempting to incorporate them into our own thought structure. So that's a little bit the essence of Bohmian dialogue, and it's certainly that kind of approach that our society so desperately needs at this point in time, is to quiet our inner assumptions, open our minds, truly listen to others, and seek a common field of understanding.
So as part of the Holo movement and what you're igniting, a way to teach people how to do that? I know we used it in the conference. I was in the vision group, and we used those kind of guidelines in the conference as we were trying to articulate the vision. Is that part of the, in your plan for, well, what is your idea for what the Holo movement can do for humanity? Let's go there first. You've launched this as a very big, beautiful, all-encompassing vision to unite humanity, and say more about what you could see the Holo movement become. We've talked about its origins. Where is it going?
Well, the need for proposing the Holo movement as a grand sociological movement of movements at this time is really a response to the very critical state of human civilization today. And we don't want to belabor the point, but I think everyone is aware that we are faced by enormous challenges: climate change, population growth. Just how do we sustainably feed 8 billion people on a daily basis as we use up the fossil fuels and all the climate consequences of that, et cetera, et cetera. So we are really in a a very dire state in many ways in our civilization. And the reason for this has been because we've been on a materialistic paradigm pretty much since the dawn of history. Obviously, in some earlier times, there were more cooperative pockets of society that worked together collectively, but the main driving force of the growth of humanity and our civilization has been based on a materialistic paradigm, starting with survival and moving on to accumulation of material possessions. And today, our concepts of even purpose are often defined by materialistic values. And most people, if we ask them what their purpose in life is, it's to make a living, to have a nice house, a nice car, enough for retirement. Nothing wrong with having enough creature comforts to sustain our lives, but once that is obtained, this accumulation of wealth for a conversion into power or influence or fame really goes astray very, very quickly. And it becomes a very inequitable situation in society where certain individuals are consuming, using, and abusing far too much materialism for one individual. And it's kind of swirled out of control. So the Holo movement is reminding us that we need to make a great turn in our process in life. And the Holo movement is really process in motion. It doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. So the concept of never-ending change in constant flux is the essence of the Holo movement. Certainly, we are in a state of flux right now on a grand scale, but this flux orders or puts meaning into the flow by sourcing the information from the core of the cosmos and applying it. And we as conscious humans have that capacity. Our self-reflective consciousness has really opened us to the use of our free will and our understanding of the deepest principles of what it is to be human, truth, beauty, and goodness. But we seem to have lost sight of that, and more so all the time. And it's on a very dangerous trajectory. So the Holo movement is a call for people to re-examine what their purpose in life is, to understand that we are here to serve the good of the whole and not to accumulate possessions for the well-being of the individual. And all the messaging and storytelling of our society often goes back to this materialistic pursuit, pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps, the idea of the rugged individual triumphing. Even the hero's journey is often about the individual again. And at this point in time, we can't be 8 billion individuals struggling against each other. We need to work in phase and in cooperation with each other. So the Holo movement is a reminder, a clarion call to all of people that we are here to serve, and we are here to be part of the whole and rediscover our true spiritual nature and put that into practice.
That's
I have a saying that I use sometimes is that we all pursue only our personal dream, we create a collective nightmare.
Well, that is yeah, that's very apt, and we are living through a bit of a collective nightmare right now. So we need to wake up to a new, more beautiful dream very soon.
And the interesting thing is that when you serve the whole, and the whole is served and becomes better for it, everyone individually prospers.
Exactly right. We're under the misconception that we need to grab things for ourselves, but when we work in cooperation, the productivity and the sharing and all of that actually does serve us in the long run. This is no great revelation relation to humanity, we've had this in our wisdom traditions forever. You give first and then you receive, and you treat others as you would have them treat you, and on. The golden rule certainly does work out, and it's been proven since time immemorial. But we need to remember that and put it back into forefront of our society today.
So in the book, Emanuel, you have a graphic. I think it's in the introduction in the section, the introduction you wrote, evolutionary pilot wave. I have the graphic. I'd like to share the screen so you could talk about it. And it's something that shows our evolutionary trajectory from beginning to where we are. So let me pull it up. Here we are. Here, this is it, the evolutionary pilot wave. Everyone see it, hopefully. Perhaps you could say something about this and what the significance of this is.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and it helps to have this visual. So first of all of our existence is a wave. If and when there was a beginning of time, we're here calling it a big breath, but it was an outflow of a vibration. The core essence of our spiritual source of consciousness vibrated, and the vibration sent out a wave. And this is an attempt to show how that wave manifested itself. And the wave then starts at the highest level of frequency at the core of consciousness and descends into materialism. So it also, in this model, is assumed that it flows in the form of an octave in phases of 8 with 7 parts, and then the 8th part being a repetition of the first. Just the way the Western musical scale operates. So if you take the C scale and go from C, or do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, you go from do to do. On the 8th note, you have a new do, which is what you started with. So it's the same tone, but the frequency has doubled in the octave. And the idea here is that this is a fractal for the way the universal pilot of evolution works throughout the universe. So the wave descends, and it becomes ever-increasing complexity of materialism. So we have light give way to particles. Particles form atoms, and atoms make up molecules. So this is the basic descent. And then when we get to the bottom of the wave in molecules, then we hit this wave trough. And as you can see, what needs to be done in these wave troughs is the process needs to literally reverse direction. The descent has to come to a stop and learn how to ascend. Now, in the case of molecules and anything moving in this materialistic mode, the tendency is let's just build more of the same because that's what we know. And molecules themselves build ever more complex structures, long chains of hydrocarbons, trying to seek the next phase. But really that didn't happen until self-replicating life appeared on the planet, rather a miraculous input into the flow of evolution. So these turning points, in this case on the trough, into life would be quite a miraculous change. Then we have an ascent where creativity, growth, biology move into the picture, and things grow ever more complex, but in a living, growing way. So single cell organisms organize themselves, become more complex, plants emerge, they perform the biodiversity necessary for animals, and animals eventually give way to humans, and humans reach again the crest of a wave, the equivalent to the big breath, the beginning of time. And again, it's a turning point. And at this point, it was the beginning of self-reflective human consciousness that brought on the next wave descent, which is the history of human civilization descending into materialism, first developing communal systems of cooperation, farming, animal domestication, etc. We've chosen some points here. There could be lots of different ones, but the axial age, when people began to have thoughts about the whole trajectory of wisdom and where we came from, the industrialization age, and now our moment in time today, which we're calling the era of transformation. And we are once again at the trough of a wave, a major turning point equivalent to when the molecules were trying to figure out how to bring life onto Earth. We're trying to figure out as a society how to bring life, growth, and the ascent back to our human evolution. So if you look at these different crests and troughs, you see the beginning of time, the big breath, the appearance of life, the dawn of human consciousness. Indigenous traditions have described these as the three great miracles of history. Well, we are on the brink here, hopefully, of the fourth great miracle, and you can see it here at this next trough, where we're going to have to make the major turn, the great turning, where we go back to a process moving towards cooperation and the true nature of humanity. In many Native American traditions, this has been prophesied. We reference it in the book as well. It says at this great turning point, there are two roads that can be taken. The black road, which goes nowhere and continues the descent into materialism to the point of no return, or the upward shift, the ascent towards the implicate order, the red road of learning anew how to cooperate and work together for the good of the whole. So we're hoping for this fourth great miracle. We're hoping the Holo movement can indicate this flow of the process, and it will encourage people the world over to take the turn themselves and look back towards the truth, beauty, and goodness in the human soul, and use that as the fractal for our purpose in life and our direction to ascend to a higher order of frequency.
Wow, that was fantastic explanation. I mean, I saw it in the book, but to hear you speak about it is just beautiful.
Thank you.
And you can see that we are at this place. And I think this is something everyone senses, that we are at this trough, we are at this turning point. There are so many people calling forth this new paradigm of wholeness. Like you say, there's so many movements already, but a movement of movements to bring them all together. To put this forth, you have created or described 8 principles of the Holo movement, 8 principles upon which this movement would be founded. Could you talk about those a little bit?
Yes, I can. I'd like to see if we can bring them up a bit here. Let me just look for those a second, if you can give me a moment.
You want to share your screen on that?
Well, I need to find them here first. I had them up, but they seem to have disappeared. So let me just give me a second.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No problem. Just let me get there, because it's
Oh, yeah, I have them here in the book.
Do you have them there? Yeah, just
I have them here in the book.
I'll bring them up right now, at least on my screen here.
We have some
Yeah.
comments that have come in while you're looking.
Okay. If you want to address those, I think I have them up now. Maybe,
Oh, you have it up? Okay.
yeah. So
You want to share your screen?
yeah, we developed a screen share. Let me see if I
Would
can.
that help?
Where do I?
Oh, on the bottom of the of your Zoom screen, Emmanuel, there's
Yeah,
middle
So
yeah,
share.
I got it.
screen, share screen.
Yeah, and let's see here. Okay, can you see that? Okay,
Yeah.
Yep.
It's
Great.
beautiful.
great, great. So this is actually screenshots from our new website, holomovement.net. So people can go to this later. It is intentionally left a little bit simple and clean right now. We think less is better. But we did develop 8 core principles, which are very important to the whole concept of the Holo movement. And these principles I developed with a group of people over a course of years. So it was a lot of conversation, deep thought, back and forth, wordsmithing. I'm very grateful to my dear friend, the late Terry Patton. Terry and I worked for a long time together. Such a dear friend, and
Yeah, you're breaking up.
his understanding of integral theory. Okay, hopefully my internet will stay stable. Am I okay now? Can you hear me?
Back again.
Okay. So Terry and I worked on these. The executive director of his nonprofit, A New Republic of the Heart, Mason Ewald joined us. We also had other collaborators, cosmologist June Curvan, Dwayne Elgin, Ben Bowler, and many others at different points in time. Bob Atkinson contributed to this, but here are the first 4: interconnected wholeness. I think we've already spoken to that the universe is all one. It is non-dual. Second one, a conscious living universe. Perhaps a bit more challenge to our academic scientific community in that, excuse me, the entire universe is alive. And
You're breaking up quite a bit.
Not the random chance,
You're breaking up quite a bit.
living. And I'm not sure. Let me just.
You know, it's about that time of day in hotels when a lot of people get online.
Yeah, it might be that just doing this screen share is using up a lot of bandwidth. Yeah, Manuel's realizing that might be getting back on. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Maybe the screen share may have just been using up a lot of bandwidth, which was causing the breakup.
Screen. Okay, well, I can just here, and we can take the screen share off.
Yeah.
Oh, nice graphic though.
Let me just quickly show you the next graphic, then I'll off.
If I could
explain. Okay.
Thank you everyone for being patient with this. I'm going to see if I can call it up.
Yeah. Technology is never perfect.
No.
We'll allow Emmanuel to get back on. Hey, Emmanuel.
You know, I could show the screen And I have good internet here, so maybe that would work better. I'm going to try that. Can y'all see it there?
Yeah, it's on. Manuel, do you have your audio on?
And we've lost him.
Well, he's on, just no audio yet.
Well, I'll pick it up. We got the conscious living universe, and I'm sure Dwayne Elgin had something to say about that because he's written a whole book on it. That the universe arises from a dynamic source of consciousness, giving meaning to our interconnected wholeness. This is the idea that consciousness creates us rather than our brains creating consciousness. I think Emanuel signed off and is coming back on. So purposeful evolution. All three of us today are from the Evolutionary Leaders Conference, so we're all into evolution. That oneness is evolutionary in its conscious awareness of existence, engaging in a purposeful evolution of its own nature. I'd like to hear Emanuel explain that one in his own words, but that this unity, that the universe being all one thing, is something that is alive and conscious and evolving.
Yeah, and one of the things that is also pointed out with the Holo movement is that we celebrate in unity. There's also diversity, and we celebrate our diversity.
Exactly.
Hey, Manuel.
Looks like Manuel is back. Emanuel?
Connecting to audio. Okay.
Stop.
Okay. So since your internet was slow, I put up the screen and we have it.
Oh, that's why it's up there.
And you can go ahead and
Sorry, I think it was. Mhm.
I talked about the conscious living universe and I started talking about purposeful evolution, and I'll let you pick it up there.
Yeah.
Oh, we're still freezing.
No.
You know,
Emmanuel, maybe turn off your video and we'll just hear you, and I'll move the screen to show people what you're talking about. Oh, frozen.
Yeah, not good internet connection at the hotel where Emanuel is.
Yeah. Well, I'll continue on. Wholesomeness is our natural state of being, and that individual beings and social and cultural systems tend to be attracted to health, wholeness, and in fact, the root of the word to heal is wholeness, and the mutual flourishing of life and consciousness. So, you know, and what Bohm was saying, that this underlying unity of everything is our basic nature. You know, we are a whole person, we are a whole planet, we are a whole family, we are a whole country, we are a whole state. That, you know, evolution proceeds by assembling the holons, the pieces that are whole, into larger and larger organizational structures. The next one is self-healing cosmos. So he's coming back on. Okay. Thank you, folks, for hanging in there.
Yeah, very sorry about that.
I got up to a self-healing cosmos.
Well, good. You're doing better than I am.
But, you know, we left off with you at the conscious living universe. I think you can, that's when you started breaking up. So if you want to encapsulate those very quickly, but I went over them a little bit from my understanding of being at the conference.
Yeah, well, purposeful evolution is, I think, self-evident in the ontological wave. There's just purpose and information guiding this. It is one whole moving motion. And as you were on self-healing, the universe does have its own inner immune system, so to speak, in that it does heal itself. And then we have
regeneration is, you know, what Paul Hawken talks about, and regeneration is a prime example of the self-healing cosmos, how the earth is self-healing when she's allowed to, you know, proceed naturally and we don't interfere.
Correct. So, and then we have unity in action.
Oh, wait, embodying the Holo movement. We didn't talk about that.
Okay. Yes. Embodying the Holo movement, we really referred to earlier in the discussion about Bohm's life, drawing from the quantum field of infinite potential, being the Holo movement in action ourselves through creativity, dialogue, bringing the best part of our spirit to act into the world is really the embodiment of the Holo movement of itself. And as we do so, then we must act in the universe. And action is the key component, from my point of view, of everything we're trying to do here with the Holo movement. If there's no action, then nothing really happens. The formula for quantum physics is E equals HF, energy equals frequency times H, and this H is Planck's constant, which is the tiny inputs of action into the universe. So this is really the part that transmits from the implicate order to the explicate order, these inputs of action. And that has to be done with the intention to unify and bring together. So when we act in whatever way we do, whatever projects we're on, even on a daily basis, just the way we treat other people, our actions should be done with the intention of unity. And then we have I'm sorry, I gotta get the screen
And then finally,
bigger
self-sustaining
here.
development of unity consciousness.
Go ahead.
Self-sustaining development of unity consciousness.
Right. And so what happens here is that the Holo movement itself sustains itself as we move with it. It informs us how to continue on that same trajectory. So we grow with the understanding. So the more enlightened we are through the Holo movement, the more powerful and insightful our actions become. And it is a regenerative, self-sustaining process of ever higher levels of frequency that are propelled forth by our Unitarian action in the universe. And it perpetuates itself and hopefully carries it on into the future. So
Beautiful.
that is the essence of it. I'm sorry that.
And you can find all that at holomovement.net, which I'll type into the chat once again.
Let me and a day you have to change your setting to send it to everyone, because
sorry.
And actually I pulled it up, so I have the complete URL so people can just click on the link.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. So Emanuel, yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'm wondering how a person can align themselves with the Holo movement. What does it take? Does it take like just becoming more purposeful, or what would be, I wouldn't want to say the formula, but the method, the process to then become more aligned and conscious of that, of the Holo movement?
Yeah, great question, Michael. And that is the most important component of all. So in the Holo movement, we wanted to be totally conscious of taking action, since action is what accesses the infinite potential of the quantum field, and action is what we need in the universe today. The very first thing we are proposing is to take action. And this, we are asking people to form what we call holons. Holons in the whole are components that are both simultaneously parts and the whole. And so this is the essence of the Holo movement. And Holons, we are describing as a minimum group of 3, and maximum really don't have one. But we're asking people either pre-existing or forming new groups of action Holons. And we will putting the word out now. We're going to run a beta group on these Holons from early May to early June to refine the system, to give guidance and structure and coherence from our core team to emerging Holons. Many of these Holons will be the synergy circles of the evolutionary leaders and other groups who've already contributed to and formed around the emerging Holo movement concept. So we are encouraging everyone to form into groups that adhere to these principles we've discussed, and then above all, choose an action to undertake as a project of the Holon. And we'll be offering opportunities and ideas for action if people don't already have a purposeful action that they are working on. Certainly, there are many of them out there from our fellow evolutionary leaders and others. And we are going to propose these. And then in conjunction with Unity Earth and World Unity Week coming up in June. If you're familiar with that, last year they did, after World Unity Week, 99 days to peace through unity, following through World Unity Week all the way to Peace Week in September. And there's 99 days from start to finish. And this year, the theme of those 99 days will be the activation of the Holo movement. So during World Unity Week, we will be asking people to group and form into Holons and choose the action they'd like to participate in over the next 99 days. And at the end, we'll ask them to report back on what they've accomplished and share some of the achievements of our Holons during this time. So that's our first major push. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of theorizing, a lot of debate over the decades. It's really time to take action. One of the actions we're proposing is be participating in the Peace on Earth by 2030 game methodology proposed by David Gershon. So that one will be front and center as a good example for behavioral change and creating peace. But of course, we encourage anything action towards environmental restoration, warding off climate change. There's so many ways, and even little ways, just in your own local community. Form a small group to do something about resolving a community problem or a need for anything new in the community, planting trees, implementing a recycling system. So we will be encouraging people to come together in these Holons. The Holo movement itself then will be this composition of a vast number of Holons working for these action points. And as they do so, we expect them to expand, to grow, develop, meet up with other Holons so that these merge together in an ever expanding field of action to resolve the challenges that face our society.
And can people go on the holomovement.org website to get guidance on forming groups, Holons?
They will be able to. We don't have that up yet, but the goal is that by early May, we will have that information up there, and we will be forming beta groups to start in the first week of May. So hopefully in the next couple weeks, we will put that up on the website.
Yeah, well, that'll be good.
You know, the event in Sedona was just fantastic. It was so inspiring and so many incredible movers and shakers there doing incredible things. Do you have others planned like that one?
Well, we have announced another event following up on Sedona. We haven't totally decided on the name of the event, but we'll call it Holomovement 2.0 for now. And that is scheduled for May 23rd to the 27th, 2024. So a year from now. And that will be held in Ibiza, Spain.
Right.
And it will be very similar in format, in some ways, to what we did in Sedona, the same length of time, breakout sessions, holo forums. But we hope, and we've chosen Ibiza in the same sense that we chose Sedona. We're looking for very spiritual points, sacred spaces on planet Earth that really have a field of activation of source energy and help us activate the projects. And we feel Ibiza is one of those places. So certainly that's on the calendar. Encourage people to come. We do hope to have a little more practical application. The Igniting the Holo Movement in Sedona was a time to share thoughts, to explore things. So maybe some people didn't feel like we really had traction or hit the ground running, but that was kind of purposefully set up that way to give everyone a chance to share their ideas and get to meet each other and exchange spiritual energy. But in Ibiza, we hope to have this more action oriented. And one of the main themes will be regenerative agriculture. And we will likely visit a site of regenerative agriculture on the island that's encouraging all the local farmers to cooperate and encouraging hotels, restaurants to locally source as much food as they can from this regenerative project. So I think it'll be a wonderful event. Encourage people to put that on their calendar. There will be other smaller events in the meantime. Myself here in Northern California next week on the 26th, I'll be giving a small presentation in Corte Madera about the book, The Essence of the Holo Movement, and some plans. And we are already discussing other smaller events in the fall and elsewhere. So those will be posted on the website as they come up. But the event here in California is on holomovement.net. So if you live in this area, you could join us for that, and there will be more to come.
Great. So since you mentioned Spain, and when we had a question also, and it made me think of something kind of tying in, we had a question from asking, the question is, what economic system does a Holo movement promote? And I want to tie it in with another question that's tied in with that. Since you mentioned Spain, I think it's in northern Spain, there's the city of Mondragon, which is a really amazing economic model of cooperative. I mean, I don't know if they've ever were aware of the Holo movement, but I'm wondering if are you aware of the Mondragon, Emanuel?
Yes, I am very aware of it. In Spanish, it's called Mondragon. Actually, back in the day when I was a journalist working for Reader's Digest, I even collaborated on an article on Mondragon when it was first coming into being. So I'm very familiar with it. I have a good friend who's worked for one of the enterprises there. And it's definitely a great example of a working system of probably what I would call regenerative capitalism. It's a system where a large share of proceeds or profits are recycled into the system and go to the benefit of all the workers in the system, but it's not outright sort of communism or even pure socialism in that sense. So it's kind of a hybrid in between. Yes, lots and lots of people and academics have visited Mondragon to study what they're doing there and how it works. And I would say that's an excellent example that could be applied to all over the world as an economic model to both incentivize people and yet make more justice in the distribution of the rewards and increase productivity, well-being, a sense of community, and a much diminished sense of ownership and hierarchy. So yeah, thank you for pointing that out, because it's a great example of the sort of economical systems that we need to be looking at.
Yeah, and then another thing about economic systems that's done in Germany, I think other European countries, that workers make up, I believe, 50% of the board of larger corporations. So the workers who know what's going on have a say in what's going on, and can, help dictate where the company's orientation and direction should be, versus a board of directors who are just aiming for profits and taking care of the shareholders.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely need to adjust our economic systems. I'm not an economist, so I don't feel that's one of my fields of expertise, but certainly there are many people who've looked into this. Donut economics, I think, explains that you really can't have a sound economic system until all the basic needs of all the people are taken care of. So you've got to have a safety net that provides housing, shelter, food, running water, the necessities of life for everyone available, and after that's been accomplished, then your society is so much more vibrant and healthy, and in the process eliminates crime and many of the ugly components of the materialistic society we have today. So definitely we need to provide more expansive services on a basic level to the entire citizenry of the world as a starting point.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah, we have some other comments coming in. An earlier one from Suzanne posted a link for people to check out Delivering the Universe Story and Once Upon a Time is Now. I guess these are some blogs, I'm not quite sure. But she made a comment, where is it now? The universe story is the universe informing itself, which is very nice about the evolutionary, that it is evolving and it's becoming more conscious. Grace Denise writes, I'm writing with the intention of reaching the attention of governments, companies, and the public at large worldwide. I have 5 proposals. The first is concerning mandatory universal fair trade. I don't know that that's a question, it's a comment. A peaceful and abundant world is a world that is just, ethical, and fair, that works for all. It is to our mutual benefit that we develop policies and invest in such a world that manifests in clean air, clean water, nutritious food, and decent shelter, which is an essential universal human rights. That's what you were just talking about. She's just, saying yes to all of that. Workers have essential insights and participation. And this is the time to type your questions into the chat. If you have anything or comments that you want. And some people wanted to know more about the place in Spain.
Yeah, so I put that in there. Yeah, Emanuel, while we wait for if people want to write anything, some people who are of a spiritual bent are into consciousness, conscious evolution, feel that getting involved in the world's problems or acknowledging the world's problems is counterproductive for their own spiritual growth, and they'd rather not be aware of it. But what would you say to that? Can this happen? Can this great transformation happen without human intentionality and action?
Yeah, that's another great question. I would start by saying, well, we have to take action. We're all in this together. It's not possible to hide our heads in the sand and pretend it isn't happening. That won't work. So we do have to do something. Now, that doesn't mean we have to dive headfirst into huge, big problems that we're incapable of solving, because that only leads us to frustration. So I would urge people to choose an action that is achievable. Don't set the bar totally low, but don't set it so high that you're going to solve the world climate crisis by yourself or anything else. So choose something that you feel called to, that you can actually approach and have some skill sets yourself to work on that. But the important thing here to the person who asked this question is, don't do it alone. Don't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. That's not going to work. It's too heavy. It's going to crush us. And so this is the concept of the holon, and a holon is a minimum of 3 people. 2 people is only a relationship. So you've got to have at least 3 to have the dynamics of a group put into play, preferably more. But find a group of like-minded people who you enjoy working with and get a common goal together. And that is the essence of your meetings, your work, and getting together. And actually, it can then be fun to a certain degree, especially if you've chosen something that's meaningful for you and within reach. When we worked on the Igniting the Holo movement, it was generally agreed by the whole group of 80 participants in Sedona that the core of the Holo movement, the interactive space in the center where everything overlaps, is joy. The impact center core is joy. And this has resonated with everyone I've spoken to since then, and it's becoming more and more emergent. I even checked it out in the I Ching and got a hexagram of following, and a following is built. People will come to it if it's joyful. People will participate and heed the call if it's fun, and it is and going to be joyful. So don't look at it as this act of misery that you're going to stick your head between 2 fighting entities and get beat up in the process. Quite the contrary, with acts of joy and random kindness and goodwill and your bright spirit working in conjunction with others, you can make a difference. You will. As Margaret Mead said, don't think that a small group of like-minded people can change the world, because that's the only way it's ever been done. So be that group, find your intention, your purpose, share it with others, build your holon, and have fun doing so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a beautiful note maybe to wrap up on, or do you have other questions, Michael?
Yeah, I have another comment, and there is a question in the chat, but yeah, Emanuel, basically what you're getting at, I mean, through our whole conversation in your book and the Holo movement, is the key for our transformation is predicated on collaboration and cooperation, and getting away from, you talked about rugged individualism earlier, and just getting away from that feeling everything's all about competition and dog eat dog, and if I get mine and you don't get it, I win.
Yeah, and I think that one thing I say about the crises that are facing us at this time on the planet is they are crises that can only be solved cooperatively. We can't solve climate change by one country doing something. We can't solve it by war. The crises are begging collaboration, they're begging cooperation, and it's the only way. They're the perfect crises to forge that cooperation, because it's the only way we'll solve them. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly right. And, crisis is the crucible of creativity. Barbara Marx Hubbard once said, crisis is our birth. And that's very clear. If you're sitting in a theater, silently comfortably watching a movie, you're not too concerned about the exits or anything like that. But if somebody suddenly shouts out fire, you're going to spring into action, and there's going to be multiple people looking for solutions, finding the exits, creating an orderly process. And I feel like the call here at these times is kind of a loud shout of fire on our planet, whether it's the Amazon rainforest burning down before our eyes or just a metaphor for the many multiple difficulties we're facing. And so this crisis is a call out to us to save ourselves and take action. And that is why this moment for the Holo movement is so key, because there's so many people around the world sensing this now and waiting urgently to find their own purpose and react. This is the kind of immune response that we described in the core principles, and it's permeating throughout society today. Don't ignore that call. Take it to heart and find your place in the whole. Use your own skills and understanding to do what you can. You'll feel better for it. The world will thank you for it. And it has a regenerative, self-sustaining process to it. The more purposeful you get, the better you feel, and the more energy you have to do an even better job on that.
Yeah.
That's why Michael and I do this podcast.
Absolutely.
Yours out to everyone. And I certainly felt that joy at the conference, and I felt it with everyone. You know, there's a really wonderful feeling of joy as we talked about all this. Yeah.
Yeah, we're working on taglines and vision and mission statements right now, but the tagline we've for the moment looking at is joyfully weaving a thriving future for all.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
So if that's not the final one we settle on, it sounds pretty good for the moment. Yeah. So join us in joyfully weaving a thriving future for all. That's what we're really trying to do here.
Yeah, it's creating a new story, basically.
Well, it is, yeah, and we need a new story. You know, and I mentioned earlier on the problems with the hero's journey and of the individual, but we need a new story of the collective journey of the hero, how humanity came to the rescue of its own cause, joined together in radical collaboration to solve its challenges, overcome the obstacles, and return home to the essence, the oneness of the human spirit that we all carry in our hearts. That is the new story, the collective hero's journey of our times. I just urge everyone to find everyone's purpose, join in that collective journey, and feel the energy and the joy of doing so.
And the final step in the collective journey, in the hero's journey, is the return home, to bring the elixir of healing back to the community. Well, those are certainly inspiring notes, and we're getting yes and so true and many comments in the chat. It's the universe story from Teilhard to Thomas Berry to Brian Swim. We're all swimming in the same direction. All the streams come together in the river and end up in the sea. So we're all coming back to wholeness on this implicate ride up and down through the octaves. And I think it's so inspiring. I was so inspired by the conference. I'm so inspired by the book and all that you've done, and so grateful that you've been able to be on the show with us and take time. I'm sure it's like a galloping horse out the gate that you're riding right now, that this is launched. Yeah.
Well, we are riding on into the future. I thank you, Anadea and Michael, for the invitation to speak with you today. I apologize for the technical difficulties here. I did manage to reboot and connect to a different internet source, so I think it's a little better now, but sorry about that. But yeah, we're moving forward, you know, and in creating the book, you know, with all the contributing authors, I gave everyone some guidelines, but number one guideline was, don't talk about the old paradigm. Don't bash the past. You know, we all know that things have gone a little bit awry. We know what the problems are, but there's nothing to be served right now about playing the blame game, looking to the back, to the past. Let's just clear the field. Start with a clean, pure slate of consciousness right here in the here and now. And that means dropping our grievances. Everyone the world over will have grievances, no matter where we are, what we do. But the grievances won't help us. It won't help others to be more sympathetic with us, and it just bogs us down. Do yourself the favor of dropping, all of us, our grievances and our cherished notions. We're so full of our assumptions. We've got it figured out. We think we've got the answers. Well, maybe we don't. Humanity as a whole doesn't. So let us all endeavor to clear out our assumptions, our cherished notions, on things, and start anew. Really from this pure sense of dropping the past, looking forward, and working together in an essence of creativity and Bohmian dialogue, true spirit of the human heart. And we can do it. We will. It's our destiny. This is the way evolution was set up. It's a very tough trough interval that we're passing through. All the more reason to get on board, work together, link up arms with bright spirits, and joyfully proceed into a more promising future.
That's beautiful, Emanuel. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your commitment to the Holo movement, which has been a long time.
And once again, the book is The Holomovement.
And I put the link in the chat.
The link is in the chat, and the website is holomovement.net, where you can learn more. And roll up your sleeves and jump in and take action and become part of the Holo movement, learn about it, bring it into your communities, and we will make a better future for all, which is what this podcast is all about.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Emanuel, and hope to see you again.
Yeah, thank you, Emanuel, and thank you all for listening.
Yeah, you're very welcome. My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. And thank you to you two and your own group here as the great work you're doing. It's a wonderful example to the rest of us. So much gratitude to the two of you and everyone listening today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
And next time we will be interviewing Bob Atkinson, who is actually a contributor to this book. So we'll be taking the conversation further. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Emanuel. I'll see you in a week. All right.
Okay. Bye for now.